Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the regular council meeting for Monday, November 21st. The clerk tonight is Ms. Jane Armstrong, and I want to first acknowledge that we are holding this meeting on the traditional territory of the Snuneymuxw First Nations. As it stands right now, depending upon how well we move through our business, we have a recess scheduled for 9 p.m. for 10 minutes. So, any introduction of late items? Any late items for council? Or Ms. Armstrong?
There are no introduction of late items by staff.
Thank you. Council? Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. I have two delegations that would like to speak, Mr. Tim McGrath and Mr. Robert Fuller, and I believe they'd like to speak on the core services review. And I'd like to know if there's no one else here on core service, can we move them forward? And then secondly, probably under item 14, I'd like to find out from staff some information on safe injection. I think it's time to start the conversation. I know it's come through to one of our committees, our public safety committee. There was a presentation, and I think if we could have some information to start this process about the zoning or any, or sending out to committees and that, I think it's time we start, especially with this fentanyl stuff going on. So that would be under 14, I guess, other. It's not really a notice of motion. It's just a request for a report.
Thank you, Councillor Kipp. Is there anyone else? Seeing none. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bestwick to adopt the agenda as amended. Seconder? Councillor Kipp?
May I speak to that? I said that they should be moved forward to get that out of the way. Does it matter to council, or do they need to wait for the core service delegation?
Okay, so the motion is to add the additional delegations and the item under number 14, and further to that the delegations be moved forward. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fuller, seconded by Councillor Fuller. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Ms. Armstrong, where are we going to place the delegations?
It wasn't specified to where in the agenda, how the agenda was being amended. So we're bringing the core services review delegations to where in the agenda, Councillor Kipp?
7.
I think 5 would be fine.
Okay, thank you. To 5 would be.
If that's the pleasure of council.
Thank you. So we're going to bring that forward as a motion. The motion has been voted on, so a motion to move them forward to 5. Seconder. Councillor Yoakum, thank you. Discussion. Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So, move the adoption of the agenda as amended.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Moved by Councillor Kipp, seconded by Councillor Bestwick. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. So, next item, motion for adoption of the minutes of the October 17th regular council meeting, October 24th special open meeting, October 26th special open meeting, and November 3rd special open meeting. Councillor Pratt wishes to move all 4, seconded by Councillor Thorpe. Thank you. Discussion? Errors or omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, presentation. We have 2 delegations who are speaking on core review. First one being Mr. Tim McGrath. Name and city of residence, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Tim McGrath from Nanaimo. In the core review, the word governance is listed 33 times. Governance is leadership. A well-known writer, Patricia Cornwall, states, "The root of all evil is the abuse of power." I'm handing out a document proving the abuse of power.
Sir, would you give it to the clerk? Would you give it to the clerk, please? Just give it to the clerk, sir. Just give it to the clerk, sir.
Yes, sir. I hold in my hand an email written by Mayor McKay undermining, belittling, and abusing his power. Mr. McKay has caused chaos and has engulfed this city and its council. I think if everybody can take a moment and read the document.
Mr. McGrath, I'd like to know where you received this document.
Well, sir, I would like to ask you what you intended when you wrote this letter.
Mr. McGrath, I would like to know where you received this document.
Sir, I think I have the floor and I am to make my presentation.
Sir,
I have 5 minutes.
The release of this document is a significant breach of privacy, sir.
You have indicated to the citizens of Nanaimo that it was all, let me rephrase it, get the exact quote you had. It was all innuendo? It's not innuendo.
Sir, where did you get this document?
I found it on the windshield of my vehicle. A number of people in the city know that I'm an advocate for the city. I'm a monitor of city council, and that's where I got it.
Okay, I want you to know before you carry on, I will be filing a complaint with the Freedom of Information and Privacy Commissioner about the release of this information.
Many, sir. I have filed many of those complaints.
I want you to know that, sir.
Okay.
Ms. Samra.
I would like to direct council to keep this as a confidential document and that the clerk not include it in the record for the open council meeting.
I wonder if this delegation isn't out of order. I would like the clerk's opinion or the CAO's opinion on that.
He's not out of order. I'm just talking about the recording of documentation given to council, so we're going to treat this as confidential until further review. And he's not out of order, and the city clerk has said the same thing, so he's able to continue with his.
Well, then I would like to ask that close attention be paid to what he's saying,
absolutely.
and that he be interrupted, particularly by you or the clerk, when he has crossed the line.
I will. It's neither the city clerk nor my responsibility to interrupt a delegation during their presentation. I see nothing that stops him from being able to do this presentation. In his worship, in his role as chair, will make that decision of whether or not something's appropriate or not as the presentation goes further. Until we know what is going to be said, it would be undemocratic to stop him.
I take
So I'm going to suggest to you, sir, that you are out of order. You have asked for a delegation tonight to speak to Core Services Review. This document, this private and confidential document, does not form part of Core Services Review.
No, this particular document was not included in the Core Review, and that's why I brought it forward to the city here.
Sir,
now.
you are not speaking to Core Services Review.
I am, sir.
Sir, you are out of order.
Sir, in the
Sir,
Core Review,
sir,
the word
you are
governance,
out of order.
In the Core Review, the word governance is listed
Ms. Samra.
33 times.
Ms. Samra,
Governance is about leadership.
So my recommendation is for the delegation to continue. Both Ms. Armstrong and I had a discussion this evening about what constitutes what's on the agenda and not on the agenda. So if his discussion is generally about governance, which is in the core services review, there may be commentary. If it gets into the content of the document that's been distributed, I think at that point we'll visit it each time that comes forward. That would be my best recommendation.
Thank you very much.
I would-
Notwithstanding your recommendation, sir, I am declaring you out of order.
I would declare you out of order, Mr. Mayor.
Sir? Sir, you are out of order.
Well,
I need
you
you to
may
return
think
to your
so.
seat.
So procedurally, the mayor has made a ruling, which he's entitled to do. Another council member has challenged the ruling of the chair. So this means, which he is entitled to do. So this means that we proceed to immediate vote by council as to whether the chair's decision should be sustained.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
Just repeat it. You can. You can.
The mayor has stated that the
You want to
delegate
stop the
is
timer
out
while
of
you go
order.
through this
The mayor,
discussion?
the mayor has made a ruling that this is out of order, which he is entitled to do. Another council member has challenged the ruling of the chair, which he is entitled to do. This means procedurally that we must move to immediate vote by council to determine whether or not the chair should be sustained. And there is no debate. There's an immediate vote. The mayor is required procedurally to ask the question, shall the chair be sustained?
You. So I'm going to call the question. Shall the chair be sustained? All those in favor?
You can't
Opposed.
vote on it, sir.
Motion is defeated.
Can we reset the timer and we can start again?
We're watching you.
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. So, Mr. Mayor, one of the other issues or one of the other quotes that I would like to bring to council's attention is from Judd Rose. With power comes abuse of power. And where there are bosses, there are crazy bosses. It's nothing new. So, sir, I would like to inquire as to the reason for this letter that was put forward March 31st, 2015. I would like to know, and I'm sure the citizens of Nanaimo would like to know, that it's not innuendo, that it's not unsubstantiated, and the other quotation that you made in the paper. The matter of importance in this is extreme. And I would like to see City Council deal with this immediately. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Robert Fuller.
To speak to the delegation or speak?
Councillor Fuller, do you have any questions for the delegation?
Well, I do. I would like to actually talk about this.
Sir, do you have any questions for the
Come on
delegation?
up. I'll ask you some questions and I'll make it directly about this. What was the date that this came out on?
I believe the date shows on the first page, March 31st, 2015.
So I hadn't even come back to council after my cardiac arrest at this point.
I believe that is correct, sir.
I hadn't. I did not come back fully until May. I came back once on March 16th, I believe, to make a motion and then stepped out. And I'm seeing this and I am just, it blows me away.
Well, this was the issue that was with Integrity Group. You'll see that it's addressed to Heather McKenzie.
Yeah.
Yes, and Ted Swaby as well.
And this was with regards to the subject of council facilitation process.
That's the subject listing. What I understood to be a council facilitation was significantly different than what I see here. I understood that the facilitation was to be done by the Integrity Group, that they would come in, they would question all the councillors, and go from there, and that it was to be confidential.
I believe that's what the public was told by the mayor and council of the day, I guess, and the city manager, I believe. I don't know. That's all the questions I have for you. I think you've brought something forward that just astounds me. It just astounds
frankly,
me.
I think it's a little bit of a earth-shattering.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Motion to receive the delegation, unless.
Motion to receive the delegation moved by Councillor Fuller and seconded by Councillor Kipp. All those in favor? For the delegation? Can we have our vote first, please?
Well, it's on the motion.
Okay.
Does information not be included in the delegation? Is that what we've said?
That's correct.
That motion was never made.
So, okay.
There's nothing to stop.
Okay. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Call a question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir. Next delegation is Mr. Robert Fuller. Your name and address for the record. City of residence, please.
Do I have 10 minutes or 5 minutes? Okay.
You have 10 minutes, sir.
Excellent.
Excuse me, Your Worship, 5 minutes, as it's a late delegation.
As a late delegation, pardon me.
5 minutes?
You have 5 minutes, sir.
Okie doke. I'd planned to speak on another topic of governance and had myself all set up to speak on it till I received probably the same thing that Tim McGrath received. To say I'm in awe is an understatement. On March the 14th, 2016, I made an impassioned presentation to council on bullying in the workplace and around council tables. This has gone on and on and on and on. It's divided our city. It's divided our people. It's made friends enemies and vice versa. I asked for it then. Put a stop to it. No one did. It carried on and on and on. That night, I asked each and every one of you if there was an instance of bullying, and nobody but Mr. Yoakum stood up and said, yes, there has been bullying. What the freak is wrong? After that presentation, the Integrity Group nonsense came up. This seems to explain the whys, wherefores, hows into this unsigned, non-contract, somehow set up to make council play well in the sandbox? This, play well? Come on, Mrs. Pratt. Does this look like it was set up to make you play well in the sandbox? Mr. Thorpe, Mr. Kipp, Mr. Fuller, Mr. McKay, Mr. Bestwick, Mr. Yoakum, Mrs. Brennan, and Mr. Hong. Does this look like it was set up to make you play well in the sandbox? Come off it. It wasn't made that way. It's a setup. This was a setup. Characteristic, bullying, name-calling, defamation of each and every one of you at its worst. Evil, you freaking betcha. Underhanded, sneaky, conniving. You, Mr. Mayor, when my brother was in intensive care, sat with me outside the hospital and said, we have a great group of counselors here. We can do great things. You can't do great things with this shit.
Sir, I need you to be careful with your language.
I need you to resign right this minute, right now.
Sir,
and therefore,
sir,
how you managed to
sir,
sit up there
sir,
with these
sir,
people, your peers, your counselors, your
Sir,
elected representatives.
I'm going to ask you to
and
sit down.
Actually, no, I won't sit down.
Sir,
No.
then calm down.
No, I won't calm down. This is just ludicrous that you can actually sit there and look me face to face
I would love to
like
hammer
this.
the point at Councillor Brennan right now with that snide.
You!
Counselor,
This
okay,
is
sir,
freaking
enough. Sit down, sir.
And we should call it bullshit.
Sit down, sir.
I haven't got a freaking clue.
Sit down, sir. Counselor,
This is bullshit. I just
sir,
Freaking bully.
Counselor. I have two items tonight. First one is that today was the launch of the Canada Learning Bond Savings Week. For those people who are not aware of the Canada Savings Bond Program or Canada Learning Bond Program, the federal government of Canada will provide up to $2,000 to contribute to a child's registered education savings plan. That starts with a $500 contribution to their RESP, followed by $100 per year contributions to the age of 15. Last year, Mayor Brian Bowman of the City of Winnipeg declared the Winnipeg Challenge. This year, he's extended that to a program called Join the Club. Club being capital C, capital L, lowercase u, and capital B, meaning Canada Learning Bond. The object of the exercise is to get out, is to expose Canada to the 1.5 million children that can access this program. In the province of British Columbia, there's an additional $1,200 available from the province of British Columbia. And making that $3,200, VIU also has a separate program for children in care, where they will pay for those in need for a university education. The second item today, I'm pleased to announce that today there was a convocation ceremony at Vancouver Island University. There was only one person who was being recognized today, and that was well-known singer and songwriter Buffy Sainte-Marie. She's had a long and very, very colorful career as a musician, songwriter, educator, visual artist, social activist, and humanitarian. Today, she was given the degree, the honorary degree, of a doctorate of laws. This is now the 18th degree that she's received across Canada, including the Governor General's Award and the Order of Canada. Congratulations to Buffy Sainte-Marie. Next item, administration. None. Next item, corporate services. Number 8A, and that's Clean Water and Wastewater Fund Grant Application. The purpose is to obtain a council resolution endorsing 2 grant applications under the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. The first one has a motion, a staff recommendation for a motion to endorse the Chase River Diversion Pump Station in Forest, Maine, and the Condition Assessment Program as the city's application under the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund.
So moved.
Moved by Councillor Beswick. Thank you. Is there a seconder to that motion? Seconded by Councillor Hong. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Councillor Beswick. No. Thank you. No further discussions. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Community Wellness Grant. And the purpose is to obtain Council's approval to amend the 2016 to 2020 financial plan to provide additional community wellness programs with project funding from the Regional District of Nanaimo. There is a staff recommendation on page 31. Can we have a mover for the motion, please? Moved by Councillor Thorpe, seconded by Councillor Pratt. And that reads that Council directs staff to amend the 2016-2020 financial plan to provide community wellness programs with project funding from the Regional District of Nanaimo. Discussion. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. Through to staff, do we have any idea what we're going to do with this money yet? Do we have any plans planned?
Purpose of the report is on page 35, I believe. Interesting that the target population is a particular one, Councillor Hong, on page 33. Those are the target populations we'll be working on some programs. This is unexpected funding, so staff are working on a number of ideas and concepts, some that are currently in play. Others we're starting to work with local doctors and other parts of the health community, as well as some of our existing programs of how we can utilize the funds to reach out to the population.
Okay, follow up on that, if you don't mind. So do we have an age demographic on where this is allocated to, or is this from youth all the way to seniors?
Given the target populations, you'll notice we have everything from children all the way to seniors at risk. So it's the whole spectrum of our population.
Okay, and then if I can ask about that we just got, what, $200,000+ for a seniors a seniors grant, I think, this year that we formed some money. Was that correct? What was that program called? Well, I just want to say that because of the fact that there was already $200,000 allocated to seniors, I would like to see this money more geared towards children, if possible, is where I kind of want to get to that discussion that we did 200-something thousand for seniors, and I know that we should distribute equally, but I would like to see more youth programs if possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I'm kind of interested in what the programs would be that this would go to. It's pretty loose, and so who's going to be in charge of putting that out to the community to see what is going to come forward to these? Because I also would like to see this go to possibly going to youth and young people, especially when you look at the unhealthy eating, the overweight and obesity, and the physical inactivity. All three of those can go together. And we do know that many of the kids in schools aren't eating healthy. The Ladysmith School Foundation, or the Nanaimo Ladysmith School Foundation, I believe, is doing some fantastic work on that. But it needs to be really improved. So when we do look at this, I would hope that it would go to the most vulnerable in the community and help move that forward. That's just my hope. Thanks.
I can't even think straight. Okay, Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. This is exciting to have this gift. And so I'm really looking forward to staff recommendations on where this should be put and what the process is going to be around how that is determined. What I would love to see, though, is something that happens at the grassroots level rather than something at a high level where it's not touching the people that really, really need the help. And whatever that is, I think from working in the nonprofit world all the years that I did, there's a heck of a lot of money goes into studies and printed materials and a lot of stuff like that, and not so much right down to where it needs to be. And so that would just be my input in terms of spending the money.
If I could, Your Worship, to the Councillor Pratt and to others. So far, what staff have identified are all direct programs.
Good.
Working with such. We had to amend the financial plan before we could actually take this money in. Mm-hmm. And then once we have it in, we'll continue to work through those. And we can report back to either Council, the Parks and Recreation and Wellness Commission, and Social Planning Commission as we work through these.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Amron?
Yeah, thank you, Richard, for sort of linking the different committees, because now we have the social wellness strategy that Council's identified, and I think notionally in the 2017 budget, there's over $300,000 that have been allocated to it. So it'd be nice to see where there's some overlap and synergies that can be achieved amongst the two committees.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item. Under Community Services, Development Variance Permit number DVP 296 at 3032 Barons Road. And the purpose is to present for Council's consideration a Development Variance Permit application to reduce the required number of parking spaces for a commercial school at 3032 Barons Road. And it's requested that Council hear anyone wishing to speak with respect to DVP 296 at 3032 Barons Road. Yeah. Welcome, sir. Sir, you need to come to the podium. It's being recorded. And I need to get your name and city of residence.
Kurt Nordley.
I'm sorry?
Kurt Nordley from Nanaimo.
Okay.
I own Shima Karate School here in town. We've been teaching for about 28 years, taught 3,000 or 4,000 kids and teens, and we're in the process of purchasing a library on Barons Road. So we're asking, it's always had a parking lot beside it that the library used. We're just asking we have to make it official with the city with the covenants, so we need your permission to make it official. It's that simple. So that is all this is about, so with your permission.
Thank you. Before you go, we have got a couple of questions for you. Councillor Fuller.
Yes.
Oh, actually, I was just going to speak to the item, not the delegation.
Okay. Councillor Brennan, do you have any questions for the delegation?
I'd like to move the motion.
Okay, thank you. We have no questions for you.
Thank you.
Councillor Bestwick, do you have any questions for the delegation?
Yes, I do.
Sir? Need you back down here.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. The motion as it reads is to reduce the required number of parking spaces from 22 to 10.
Yes.
But in reading the report, it indicates that there's a certain amount of parking spaces on one property and then another amount of parking spaces on another property.
Correct.
So is there an amalgamation?
The city is requiring us to apply for a covenant on the second property, assigning 10 of the parking spots or 12 of the parking spots to the library property. So we just need apparently a variance on the library property to allow it to operate with 10 spots if we put a covenant on the other property to give it 22.
Okay, so it's really not a reduction in parking spaces.
Pardon?
It's really not a reduction in parking.
No,
Right,
no,
thank you.
it's not. I don't know why they wrote it that way, but we're going to be filling the parking requirements.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor Pratt.
I agree with Councillor Bestwick that the motion, it doesn't seem to me to reflect what we're actually talking about here. Or maybe all it needs to say is that council issues a development permit to reduce the required number of parking spaces based on a covenant?
Actually, it did say that in my letter requesting it. They just didn't put it on the actual first paper.
So maybe my question would be to staff then around just making sure that this says everything it needs to say in it. Because we're not actually saying anything here about requiring a covenant in order to reduce those 12 or those 10 spaces.
I know I
12
did
spaces.
deal with Tamara with parking, and she helped me put it together.
Thank you.
Mr. Lindsay.
We'll just get some advice from staff.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's very much a technicality, the application. If you look at, it's probably easiest to speak to if you look at page 47 in your agenda. There's an air photo of the property, and you can see that there's limited parking actually on the subject property. Thank you. It's on the overhead now. So on paper, there's only 10 parking stalls on that property. So technically, under our bylaw, you need to have parking stalls on the property. Because there's only 10, there's the requirement for a variance. However, there's the ability to secure additional parking on the neighboring property, which would allow for more than sufficient parking for the use. So there is a condition under the development variance permit, if council were to pass it, that would actually require a covenant to be put in place to secure in perpetuity parking on the neighboring lot at 3042 Barons Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see any further questions for the delegation. Unless you have questions for the delegation, Councillor Fuller? Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Is there anyone else wishing to speak to respect to DVP 296 at 3032 Barons Road? Seeing none, can we move to the motion, please? Move to receipt of the delegation.
Yeah.
Seconded by Councillor Brennan. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Is there a mover for the motion? It's Councillor Brennan's moved by Councillor Brennan and be seconded by Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Councillor Pratt?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Brennan?
No.
Thank you. I've got a question for Mr. Lindsay. So if I have this correct, this is a similar kind of application on a development variance permit as the Nanaimo Daily News building, where there was not adequate parking on the property, so there would be a variance to the property itself, but there was a requirement that was part of their development permit that required them to lease the parking spaces across the street. Am I correct in that?
Yes.
This is the same type of arrangement.
absolutely, Your Worship. It's one where on paper it doesn't meet the technical requirements of the zoning bylaw, but through either off-site parking or parking on adjacent lots, we're able to meet the intent of the bylaw. Doesn't get around the fact that you still need a variance process to go through. It just means that there's strong rationale there to support that variance. And the one you mentioned is a very comparable example.
Thank you very much. Councillor Fuller, do you have a question for Mr. Lindsay?
I just wanted to thank him for the report. In reading the whole report, it became clear to me why it was set up the way that it was set up and that it was a technicality that had to be done. So it was pretty clear to me once I read the full report. So thank you. It was well done.
Thank you.
And,
Councillor Pratt?
And also, so this is just one step in the process. There is another step which requires a covenant.
There'd be no further steps with council. If council
No.
approved the variance tonight, then we would proceed with
Yeah.
the registration of the covenant.
And then staff will just, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Lindsay. So call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item, Heritage Alteration Permit number HAP 28 at number 6 Commercial Street. And that is to present for council's consideration a heritage alteration permit to permit the demolition of the Gene Burns building at number 6 Commercial Street. And there's a staff recommendation on page 48. Moved by Councillor Hong. Seconded by Councillor Pratt. Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I'm just wondering if this is going to be affected by what's up on Crankshaw Holdings site, their November 13th update that they have done. So whether that will affect if we make the motion to remove it, and they can't remove it at this point. There's some confusion.
Okay. Can staff answer that question?
I'm sure of, I thought I saw something
Matt,
recently.
Mrs. Semmer, I got to get you on the microphone. It's being recorded.
I haven't had a chance to confer with Mr. Lindsay either. I thought I saw something, and I didn't know if it was a dated piece talking about their inability to do something, or if it was a refreshed piece saying that particular consultants are being too costly, they're going to need to call other people, and it's not going to be possible at this time. So I'm not sure you've had that opportunity to look at that either, Mr. Lindsay.
Sorry, Your Worship, I'm not familiar with what's been posted on their site. I have been in regular and ongoing contact with their property agent, and at this point their intent is to proceed with demolition. They do not at this point have a date, nor have they submitted an actual demolition building permit to the city. This is the first step because the building is on your registry, your heritage registry, and it's within your heritage conservation area downtown. It actually needs a heritage alteration permit before staff can issue a building permit when it is actually made, a demolition permit when it's actually made.
It's fairly lengthy. I mean, you can find it. So from what you're saying, it shouldn't affect the heritage alteration at all. So that makes sense. Thanks.
Thank you. I see no further questions. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next one. Rogers Hometown Hockey. And the purpose is to provide an overview of Rogers Hometown Hockey and request approval of a budget to showcase Nanaimo when Rogers Hometown Hockey comes to town in February 2017. I take it you have a presentation.
Your Worship, yes, if you indulge us in a short presentation, and also we can answer any questions to you. First of all, I'll introduce Liette Massey, so co-op student from Vancouver Island University, who has been helping us since September on this. September 7th, City of Nanaimo officially was granted one of the 24 cities across Canada to actually host hometown hockey, and it's a great opportunity, we feel, and as you'll see through the report, a number of other agencies and groups are also very excited about showcasing Nanaimo. I'll turn over to Liette in a second, who's going to show a little video of some of the ones that happened last year and some of the effects it has on communities, and then I'd like to answer questions the council has on some of the activities we're currently planning. And we know this is late in the day for budget requests, but this is an opportunity that we weren't anticipating, just like the the health grant. We didn't anticipate getting this opportunity to do a great event in February for the community. So I'll turn to Liette, who will introduce the video and some other things.
Good evening, Your Worship and Council. Thanks for having us attend tonight's meeting. First of all, I'd like to say thanks for the opportunity to be the event coordinator for Rogers Hometown Hockey. It's one of the biggest national events that's happening in Canada right now. So it's amazing that we've been offered it in the city of Nanaimo, and I'm really excited to showcase our amazing city. This video is just what they call, from Rogers Hometown Hockey, a sizzle video. So it's their way of showing how excited they are to visit all of these communities across the country to celebrate our great game of hockey and its grassroots level of where it starts with kids and all the way through families and creating communities. So if I can get the video started, please.
Everywhere we go, there will be signs of hockey, and we can't wait to stop at each and every one of them.
The nets, were so frail, basically. The pucks would go through the netting as they got older, so we put a picnic table down, and the picnic table would stop the pucks. So I used to have to go next door and pick up all the pucks.
I've always felt that I owed the community here for giving me the chance to grow up here, to play hockey here. I'm proud of being from Gatineau.
Now to McKinnon. He's got the big shot. He uses it there and scores.
Get a sheet of plywood and, probably 30, 40 feet away from my dad's barn. And I just, shoot pucks all afternoon.
Wherever and however the game's played, it's in our nature. And that's why we're whooping it up in Whitehorse.
24 stops, we intend to explore thoroughly the communities we're in.
This is the world's oldest hockey stick. This dates back to 1830-ish, and it comes from Cape Breton.
On the behalf of the Hartman Sharks, we'd like to give you this autographed jersey.
Oh, thank you so very much, Ron. Look what I got. Please welcome Bare Naked Ladies!
It's just so great to spend time with Islanders. There's nothing better.
Hey, how are you, bud? It's impossible to get you out of this building.
Oh, hey, bud. How you doing? Hey, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Good. Hey, bud. How are you? How are you? Good to see you, man.
The combining of communities to form one. And that's what we are, joined at the hip by hockey.
Thank you.
Your Worship, we've had a very active committee chaired by Councillor Baswick. As you'll notice on page 58, a number of different groups and organizations involved with the committee, the organization committee. We've identified an initial program. Again, with this being at this point in time, we're just trying to get things to you as quickly as things developed, and then continue planning. And I'm sure we'll be planning right up until the week. With this, we see an opportunity, particularly in the week that it's on, to make a broader celebration. Right up that for example, we have 2 professional development days. So we have children off the Monday and Tuesday. We're working with the school district on finding different things to do that week to make it a week-long celebration in February. And we believe we'll have an incredible way of showcasing Nanaimo. At the same time, have a great celebration for the citizens of Nanaimo. Any questions you may have?
Thank you. Councillor Baswick.
Thank you. Not so much any questions. I think I've asked you guys enough of those in the last several weeks, but I do wish to certainly compliment Richard and Liette and the balance of the committee that has been formed in their efforts to ensure that the week-long celebrations and more are extremely memorable, that a legacy will be left behind when the hometown hockey leaves, beyond just the memories that were created as a result of participating. And this should be one of the most spectacular weeks that we've had the opportunity to experience in many years here. And First Nations is involved, VIU is involved, School District 68 is involved, the museum here locally is involved. I don't think there's an agency, the Chamber's involved, DMBIA is involved, tourism as well. I don't think there's anybody that's not involved in this delivery of this initiative. So to put all of those people in the same room and get the desired outcome and results is something that Liette and Richard are stick handling. I can use that in this sense. Are stick handling through this process. And I know we've got a very important conference call this week, and we look forward to hearing more good news. So thanks very much to you guys for the work, effort, and energy that you're putting into this event on behalf of myself and I think the balance of the committee that you're working for. Thanks.
Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I actually have some questions, but I'm going to leave my comments, I think, for a discussion time. But I'm very excited for Hometown Hockey to come here. I see that the budget you presented to us is $122,000. Seems like we're all funding it. I also see that we have a large contingent on local organizing committees that have organizations or agencies that are interested. But nowhere on this do I see them putting any money in it. So when we're doing all these great things, I just, it's hard for me to accept this total when you haven't shown me where you're going to get sponsored grants from, if that's going to be the case, if the public is paying for all. I hate giving away this much money without any group, whether this is a community organization or nonprofit, to see the bang for the buck that the committee is going to do to try to get some sponsorship money from other people to come in and support this. If this is $122,000 that's going to cost the city, and you're going to tell me we're going to get $250,000 in sponsorship for other things, I can live with that. At this point, it seems like the city is putting up all of the money, and you're not trying to get it from anywhere else. So that's where it seems like to me when we get this report in this budget. And again, I'll mention it like this, exactly the same as what we do with contract and development. Why are we spilling all the beans on what we're willing to pay? Like, I get we have to have a budget. I think this should be done in camera. The totals, you're telling everybody out there, you're willing to spend $3,000 on toilets, you're willing to spend $3,000 on tents. When it comes out to tendering or getting the prices, that's always what we always seem to get with the city. Like, I think site equipment should have been lumped into a total cost. We didn't need the breakdown to be shown. I get we have costs, and it's great that you're doing a budget, and I love the detail of the budget, don't get me wrong, it's wonderful. But when you're trying to go out there to get these prices, it just seems like we always kind of let the cat out of the bag. So that's just one of the concerns I have. Thank you.
Would you,
yeah, an answer for
Your Worship, to the Councillor Hong. We are working on those, but because of the tight time frame, if we wanted to actually plan to make sure the event happened, we wanted to make sure we had some dollars to make this happen. There is a lot of support in the community, and we will continue to work. I'm on, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Work with different donors. We may get the toilets donated, but we need to throw it initially to get something to council to show we're working on these things, so that we're not taking it out of other areas without any kind of authority for council for us to continue to do these types of activities. We think it's a great event. We think a lot of sponsorships will come in as we work on it, but we need to get something to you because we've only got 4 or 5 months to plan this to make it happen if we want to do it.
Thank you.
And I should waste also, Your Worship, the Rogers Hometown Hockey, we could do absolutely nothing and they'd come in. We just see that there's a real opportunity for us to go the next step and really showcase the city. And so these are where these opportunities are. Rogers is bringing in, I would say, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of activity, exposure across Canada. So this is what else do we do down in Mathieu Sutton Park and throughout the week to expand on it. And in regards to the quotes, we just have to initially put it, we wouldn't go out with that. In fact, some of these we have contracts anyway with contracted unit prices, but it gives us, just to give council a feel what we're trying to achieve.
Sorry, can I just add to that as well? The local organizing committee that Councillor Bestwick is chairing We've also created a smaller subcommittee that's working on sponsorship. So as soon as we can finalize some of these items that we would like to proceed with council's approval, then we would go out and start to solicit that sponsorship. So we know that when we're going to a business, we can say, we need help with the fireworks show that's been approved, for example. Secondly, one of the biggest things is we do get a half-hour broadcast show from Sportsnet for the half hour right before the hockey game, and that's where they're showcasing our city. Tara Sloan does a Hometown Must activity, and that's filmed and broadcasted in that half hour. It also highlights a restaurant that she'll attend. It'll highlight various hockey groups and organizations within our community, and within that, it's all about the city of Nanaimo. Its look, its feel. It's not just hockey, but the community that we live in. So I just wanted to put that out, that that's a huge amount of broadcast time as well.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
I think this is going to be a great event for the city of Nanaimo, and the cost is, if you look at a cost benefit, I think the benefits would probably be 10 times the cost to the community. You've got a sponsorship committee. I trust they will do well. If I owned a portable toilet company, I would donate them because I'm going to get a lot of press out of this, And so I think you'll do really well in the sponsorships, and I'm really looking forward to taking my grandkids to some of the events. It's going to be a phenomenal week. Phenomenal.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
Thank you. Appreciate where Councillor Hong is coming from, and I respectfully compliment Richard and Liette for their responses. The event itself is probably estimated at $750,000 to $950,000 worth of broadcast play across the country, if you will. And as I think Liette indicated, that we don't, or Richard maybe, we don't have to do anything if we chose not to. This could be like the fair or the circus that comes to a mall and sets up, and we could. But this event in and of itself, we're creating a legacy piece with video capture from the beginning to the end that all organizations in Nanaimo will have access to. That will be created as a first-class sellable piece when they're going to attract other events and attractions to the city of Nanaimo. A booklet and a guide that will be hard print and cover that will serve as another tourism piece as a result of this event to ideally and optimally attract other events that VIU and the tourism and other organizations can take with them when they're out recruiting and procuring events. When we speak to what is anybody else doing, well, VIU, school district, just to name a couple, are investing staff time with us to trying to create events on their campuses. They're doing alumni weekend for female hockey and male hockey from VIU, and so on and so forth. So there's a considerable amount of investment and resources that are being taken care of by other organizations that we wouldn't be able to if they weren't on side. So, and at the end of the day, I think there's probably more coming. I know that we're trying to capitalize on 2017 already budgeted items that we can complement as we move forward. As far as fundraising is concerned, it's never easy to go after sponsorship when a major consortium like Rogers Hometown Hockey Sportsnet is wheeling into town. And why are we going to sponsor them? Why are we going to sponsor that event? So what we're seeking sponsors, and we aren't asking for sponsorship for the Rogers Hometown Hockey Weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We're seeking assistance and resources and in-kind and cash, we hope, for other events that we're trying to build around this event to make this sort of our little week-long Olympics, if you will. So that's where we're trying to attract that interest. And I know I don't want to make this long, too long already, but the major sponsors kind of golden handcuff us too, because it's of course a car dealership, it's a major fast food chain, it's a bank, there's Scotiabank, there's many of those things. So we can't go and talk to other organizations because they have naturally the license, if you will, to be the only sponsor in their world. So Rogers, we can't go to Bell or TELUS or Tom Harris Cellular or anybody. I guess they're getting plugs now. So the work that's going on is significant. The effort that's going on is significant, and the event itself, when it comes, will be significant. So I'm anxious to get February 25th and 6th on the board.
Thank you. Ms. Sammer?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. If hockey's not your thing, I'd like to appeal to you on 3 other areas. This gives us an opportunity for destination marketing for Nanaimo. We've got plenty of time over a 3 or 4 day period to show stuff at the top of Benson, show our trails, show our hiking, show our community, and show the beauty of it. It is an opportunity to be on national TV showing Nanaimo as a destination marketing place. Second of all, it supports one of your priorities, sports tourism. What better way than show the facilities that we have at Frank Crane Arena, at our other ice sheets, our swimming pools, our fields. It allows us to market sports tourism. Third of all, thinking completely outside the box, looking at the types of products that we could build and purchase as part of this. For example, kiosks, 20 or 30 kiosks that are used as part of the different display areas in the Diana Krall area, the China Steps, across the city. These are items that can be pulled out when the cruise ships come, can be pulled out when there's celebrations during the summer. It's an investment in the beautification of the downtown core that could be supported by the DMBIA, by the VICC, and by our other partners and the leaders in our tourism industry. So there's a lot of things that we can do to showcase Nanaimo for relatively low investment so that it can attract other things after the hockey comes to town. So just trying to get you to open your mind. It may be we come back with a request for building those kiosks, because I think it would be fantastic to see them at the cruise terminal when they arrive, having kiosks with the wares and food and wonderful things that are being shown in Nanaimo, and to have that type of beauty being brought all the way down into the city instead of just walking down a gravel road. So it's thinking outside the box, taking an opportunity like this and seeing when we can invest in it more than once and carry it forward as a legacy for the city.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions for you. Number one is, I don't see anywhere on here. I thought originally we were going to see a temporary ice rink down at Maffeo Sutton Park.
Yep, Your Worship. Stay tuned for next week's report. It's on your agenda for next week. I just couldn't get it on tonight. I'm presenting it to you as another opportunity, more of a legacy opportunity of trying to do an outdoor rink. So that's on for council's consideration for next Monday.
So obviously that's not going to be included in the $122,000.
That's correct.
Okay. Second question is, when we were looking at this project initially, and the decision was being made by council, and I don't recall the resolutions that were put forward, but how does this $122,000 compare to the budget we received at the time that we were trying to make that consideration as to whether we were going to bid on this? What was the budget then?
Your Worship, all we needed to do at that time was provide just some site facilities such as the washrooms and the facility and things like that. So there wasn't a lot. Again, this is an opportunity we've coming to council with where we feel we could expand on this event.
Thank you. Councillor Pratt.
Thank you. I think this is a really exciting opportunity. I'm not a hockey fan. I'm afraid I'm not, but my kids didn't play hockey, but I think this is a real opportunity for us to highlight our city and create something that we can use in the future as well. So I really appreciate all your hard work and the work of the people that you're working with. And I'm really looking forward to participating despite my lack of enthusiasm for hockey.
Your wish, if I could, for those who don't like hockey, there's a lot of events in Buffalo that aren't going to be hockey related. So it will be a lot of different aspects going on.
Thank you. Councillor Bestwick.
No.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further questions. So there's three options in the report, and there is also there's three options in the report. So Councillor Pratt is moving the recommendation, the staff recommendation. Councillor Fuller is seconding it. Discussion.
Your Worship?
Yes.
We need to indicate that where the funding is going to come from, so I suggest that Council consider just at the end of the motion indicating that, and that the financial plan be amended to provide for funds to come from general reserves.
Thank you. So you're going to move option number one with the additional that the funds would come from general reserves. Yeah. Thank you. Supported by the seconder. Thank you. Okay, discussion. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. I was wondering if we could just change that to the council approve a budget of up to. I don't want to spend $122,000 if I don't have to.
Okay. Any issue with that? Mover, seconder? Thank you. Up to. Okay. Councillor Hong. Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. In regards to that, though, I don't want our hands tied for Mr. Harding's next week, so I'm assuming that'd be a separate budget, separate conversation, because I don't want to handcuff positive progress on this exciting event. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item, Advisory Committee Commission Minutes. You're moving receipt of the minutes. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Kipp. Thank you. Discussion? Errors and omissions? Seeing none, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're into bylaws. Bylaws. Councillor Fuller, as the acting mayor, can you read the bylaws, please? The motions.
Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 2015, number 6529, OCP 78, to amend the land use designations within the OCP by redesignating 601 and 609 Bruce Avenue from corridor to commercial center neighborhood, and to amend the Harewood Neighborhood Plan to redesignate the properties from village corridor and residential corridor to commercial center neighborhood be adopted.
Second the motion.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Fuller, seconded by Councillor Kipp. Any questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And I'd like to move that zoning amendment bylaw 2015 number 4500.081 RA 345- to rezone 601 and 609 Bruce Avenue from single dwelling residential R1 to City Commercial Center CC3, and to redesignate the subject properties from corridor to commercial center neighborhood in order to permit a commercial development be adopted.
Second the motion.
Moved by Councillor Fuller and seconded by Councillor Kipp. Discussion, seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries.
And the short one, that housing agreement bylaw 2016 number 7233 RA 349 to enter into an agreement on behalf of the City of Nanaimo which sets out the terms and conditions of the occupancy of the housing units identified in the agreement be adopted.
I'll second the motion.
Seconded by Councillor Brennan. Thank you. Discussion. Councillor Kipp.
Why is the address not listed on this? Is there a reason? This was a controversial issue, and I just wonder if the people continue to know that and concerned with it. So, not an answer required then. Just wondering why we wouldn't put the address in. because everything, usually typically in our bylaws, we're affecting an address.
Thank you.
I'm in favor of it.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Next item is correspondence. None. Council appointments. None. Notice of motion. None. Other business. Core services reports and delegations. Question.
Other business.
Other business. That's correct. Councillor Kipp.
Thank you. With the discussion currently of the fentanyl crisis across Canada, meetings in Ottawa last week, I'd like to get a report for council, whether this would, what committees it should go to, or other form of committee that staff recommends, like maybe a ad hoc committee with some of the playing partners, RCMP, VHA, and that. What zoning and any costing for an idea. So phoning Vancouver possibly and finding out what the costs are of this. I think it's something that's very topical right now. It's been on the books for a few years, and I think it's something we have to look at now and start this public conversation. So that's my point on that.
Thank you. Councillor Fuller.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Councillor Kipp is proposing. I believe Victoria is actually looking at 2 sites in Victoria, potential sites, and they're going to move forward with them. It's a long process, so if the city of Nanaimo, and I say if because it's something we need to think long and hard about, decides to do this, we've got to get the ball rolling, because currently the process to do it could take a year or 2.
So, thank you. Councillor Hong.
Thank you. This is interesting that it came at a timely manner. I was actually at the Military Museum today, visiting it, and the staff pulled me inside to show me all the needles and everything that they've picked up from Piper's Park and all the people that go up there to do all this stuff. And their concern is the safety of the kids and the parents that come run around that park in the summer with no shoes on, and they're constantly picking up needles and everything there. So sooner or later, I actually would like a discussion of what we're going to do with that amazing facility up there that is honoring our war vets, with regards to either some sort of a fencing along the ridge or something that keeps them away, and whether we need better lighting or something. So, this is a timely matter, and then they did express concern. The RCMP, they said, do a great job, and they're on it. They're thankful for the cameras, but I think we might need to do more in that area. I think that's been neglected long enough. So I would actually like us to look at that eventually too. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp.
Yeah, part of this too, I think we should talk to our fire department to find out how many they're going to and where they're going to, because part of this is not only safety for those that are using injectable drugs, but it's for our fire department, our police, our ambulance attendants who are going out all over town to deal with these overdoses. And I think it's important to have that factual information to support that it's a life safety and a responder issue too. Thank you.
So, Councillor, I wonder if you can help me here with respect to bringing a motion forward that we can second and give instruction to our staff.
So I'd request a report on safe injection to include items like what committees should be dealt with, what type of zoning, any costing implications, and any information from other local governments.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there a seconder to that? Seconded by Councillor Hong. Thank you. Councillor Fuller, to the question.
Yeah. This is not just a Nanaimo issue. Like I mentioned, you've got Victoria, you've got Vancouver, but it's Canada-wide, and it's having past involvement in drug use, et cetera, in my younger days, nowadays it is a far different thing, and the stuff that's out there is killing people daily almost, across Canada. We've had 26 deaths in Nanaimo this year, most of which can be related to fentanyl. It's tragic. 5 years ago, I would not have supported a safe injection site in this town. But the way things are going right now, we definitely got to look at it. And we need to bring agencies in like Harris House who have a needle exchange and do the education component as well. So when we look at this, we need to bring in the people that are dealing with it. Because part of the problem is there are groups out there handing out needles and kits and not educating people to bring them back, to get new ones, bring back get new ones, bring back, get new ones. So it's a huge issue. And a safe injection site will not solve all the problems, but it will solve some of the problems.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor. Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Councillor Bestwick.
Just an item under other business, if at all possible. I didn't hear from our only employee as it related to the delegations at the beginning, and I'm wondering if there's any information to be
I've got a question.
shared in that regard.
Through your worship, I think yes. I think at this council table over the last year, this topic has come up a number of times, and after a year of going through corporate records and I guess away from the table discussion, I think there's some things we can talk about that aren't confidential and will probably be helpful for the public discourse. In January of 2015, the Integrity Group was retained to assist Mayor McKay work with council on the relationship and on their council dynamic and at the council table. And that didn't crystallize into a proposal until April of 2015. And it's my understanding that over a 3 or 4 month period, Ms. McKenzie met with the various members of council and with the mayor working on that particular project. And in and of itself, it seemed to be an exercise of assisting leadership at the council table. At the same time, and in a subsequent investigation that I was asked to undertake, I took a look at a process that was signed off by a memorandum of understanding, I think between Tom Roper, Peter German, Mayor McKay, and former city manager Ted Swaby. And the objective of that investigation was to look at the climate at the council table and amongst senior staff. And that started to chug along in September, October of 2015. When I arrived, I did a line of inquiry into that particular investigation and the integrity investigation. And as a result of my line of questioning, basically asking, well, what's being investigated? Are there any allegations? Who are the complainants? Who are the respondents? I quickly found that, or I was quickly advised that it really wasn't about complainants and respondents. It's about witnesses and conversations, and senior management and council are being invited to have a conversation with the investigator. And I reported back to council on those findings and made a recommendation that, well, if this is for, ostensibly, dealing with workplace safety and a respectful workplace, that the scope of this investigation ought rightly to be restricted to council, since it's elected term, because it's about this council and their interactions with staff at the city who are working at the city at the same time you were elected. Because in my investigation, it seemed they were going back and inviting former employees that had worked for the organization 5, 7, 10, and almost 15 years ago. And I found it difficult to understand what the relevance of somebody who worked for the city 15 years ago has to do with the workplace safety of the staff that I am responsible for and the council that I'm working with. So the motion that council gave was that go back to Mr. Roper and Mr. German and restrict the scope of that investigation to only include the time that these council members were elected until now, and employees that worked at the city during the time these councillors were there. Unfortunately, in the way that the Memorandum of Understanding was constructed, and I don't know all the details, under the Law Society, Mr. Roper was unable to continue, and under the MOU, Mr. German was unable to continue because he was unable to set aside what he would have learned in interviews and investigations that he had with former staff that were no longer with the city. So we're at a point where, okay, there was an investigation to deal with. We really don't know what, because there weren't any allegations and there weren't any respondents, but the investigation was ongoing. So that was terminated and set aside by council. At the same time that this happened, it came to light that the individual working for the Integrity Group had actually not worked in isolation and had worked with other lawyers and with the Roper Peter German group to design that investigative process. So while council members thought that they were meeting with Ms. McKenzie to work on their working relationship and leadership at the council table, she was also assisting in the design of an investigative process that saw a senior civil servant seconded from the federal government to come in and work for free to investigate council and staff. So that, that's quite a bit of information. I have that all paper documented. There was allegations that perhaps I wasn't telling the truth when I was relaying this to council, that I had misrepresented things, and those allegations were put to me several times, but I was able to furnish comprehensive sets of emails and documentation to support the findings that I had found and the recommendations that I had made to council. In place of having either of those investigations, I got legal advice that told me the things I could do to make sure that there was a respectful workplace for my staff. And those things included not having staff in all the in-camera meetings. They used to have 10 or 15 of them in there at once. Instead, bringing in staff as their items came up. Just a number of different things that you can do to ensure that your staff are well protected. I also went the extra mile and did an environmental scan, which is a snapshot of how are folks getting along during a particular point in time, which was helpful, but that's kind of separate from this. Why am I giving you this information? Well, the documentation that came forward today is part of the corporate record. It is in my possession. It is in 3 administrative assistants' possession and 2 FOI possessions, and will also be in the corporate archives. So this documentation is part of the corporate record. And I was asked on several occasions to provide copies to members of council. The original route that we recommended them to do was to go through the FOI process, and as a result of that, they got heavily redacted versions of this particular letter because it contained the personal information of each individual council member, as well as the personal information in the form of opinion of Mayor McKay. And so they've received redacted versions from me, redacted versions from Ms. Gurry. I also have a legal opinion, which I think at this point I'll be sending to council, and talking about weighing the rights of the 2 parties and which party ought to prevail, what party should be able to, whose rights are more important, the individual that wrote a letter or every other individual that was spoken about in that letter and the types of things that were said about them. And I've always been reluctant to make that call. I erred on the side of the conservative legal advice. I may revisit that at this point in time. So what we have is a year-long interaction amongst council members. This isn't about staff. It's about the processes that were entered into, about their working relationships, and about investigations with 3rd and 4th parties. Both of those investigations have folded. We still haven't paid Integrity Group. We've tried to get further information from both Mayor McKay and from her over the last 9 months, and no information has come in, so we simply have not paid those bills. We need to be able to verify that those services were indeed provided, and that there was something in place that authorized those services to be delivered, that the appropriate amounts of money were increased in the different cost centers. Unfortunately for you, Ms. Armstrong, the integrity contract fell within your area. Mr. Jackson had carriage of it before you. With the MOU with Mr. Roper and Peter German, that fell in Mayor McKay and the city manager's portfolios. We've paid out those bills in full when they closed. So there's this has been in the newspaper off and on for a year, and I think that's the most succinct summary of what happened. It's now ended, and staff work with our own policies and our own working relationships to make sure we're all okay. And council, for the most part, I see are making decisions and moving decisions along and getting the business of council done. This is, to me, I call it a legacy issue. It predates me, but there certainly were some bizarre anomalies with how it was constructed and the type of narrative that was amongst you about what and who was doing what and what it really meant. And it's surprising to get a copy of that today. But I'm hoping that provides some insight into what happened.
Thank you.
Excuse me.
Councillor Yoakum.
Thank you. Yeah, in regards to this email that came out before us this evening, I don't know what we're allowed to speak on, but I'm really personally upset from my number 3, the bio, Mayor McKay's bio of Bill Yoakum. It's really disheartening. It's very personal, very opinionated, quite fictitious in some views. And unfortunately, some personal traumas in my past are shared with God knows who. If it ended up on someone's windshield, and here we are, so how many windshields are out there on Bill Yoakum and his childhood abuses? It really, really hits me. And how are we allowed to speak on this?
I would remind you that this is a private and confidential document.
Confidential?
And I will remind you that I intend to file a complaint for the release of this document to the Freedom of Information and Privacy Commissioner.
Mr. McKay.
Sir, sit down. Sit down.
So,
Some of it's your personal information and some of it's Mayor McKay's personal information. The information about you is your personal information. Basically, in a business sense, it would be Councillor so-and-so elected. It's your name, your title, etc. Personal history about you, whether it's true or not, that's your personal information. What he thinks about you is his personal information.
that's fine.
That's...
But I should have a right, to speak when it's about myself. Okay, so in other words, I've heard the usual threats to my left for 2 years now. And Tracy, I just appreciate the narrative of the story is really, it's quite upsetting. This is really taking its toll. And it affects some of us personally in our own lives. The slug of the last 2 years and the lens, those 5 are chaotic, those 5 or this mayor and council is dysfunctional. Well, this stuff is real and it's really heart-wrenching and it's not accurate, more so. Bill was blah, blah, blah. Bill was blah, 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 which... not blah, blah, but it's it's really minimally we expect an apology. Minimally we expect an apology. And I'm really saddened. And this is March, and we just started really January of that year. And then I go along and I go down and I read, say, on Gord's, I think you just were in the hospital, or did you just get out of the hospital? You died or nearly died, and there's this stuff been said about you? Wow. Anyways, I'll leave it at that then. I'll take... So this is obviously out in the public if it's on someone's windshield. And I'm really disheartened and I'm sad. I'm really sad that it had to come to this, and so early in my term, and in a year and a half, been painted that I'm this, I'm that. Bloggers and Facebook and people saying I'm this, I'm that, but don't really know what we're really up against. So, I'm really let down. I'll leave it at that for now, since we can't speak on it. I just thought I'd be allowed to speak on my paragraph. I will. but not tonight. My thoughts are too, I'm not in a good spot. This is not light stuff in my past. Thank you.
Councillor Fuller.
Every time I look at this, chills go through my body. When you wrote this, you had known me as a city councillor for less than 2 months. Less than 2 months. I'm not disagreeing with what you say about me. I am proud to be a longtime activist. I am proud to have absolutely no idea of the intricacies of the political world, including strategy, subtle nuance, and protocol, because I've seen how you use it. And if that is what governance is, I want nothing to do with it. I got elected for who I am, not for who I could pretend to be. And so I have chosen to do that throughout. I've made some mistakes. I've watched a coordinated attack on social media against our city manager that is totally uncalled for. People getting fed information and posting it. And this is a person that has done more for this community in the year that she has been here than some of the city managers, I believe, in the past. This is abhorrent, what I read here, that any one individual would try and steer something. I went in, I talked to Heather McKenzie. I thought, this is nice. This is good. We're going to try and do something. But when I went in, I thought it was an open and fair process. I did not know that she had a predetermined outcome that she was working towards. I am aghast at this. I'm going to take it to a lawyer. I'm going to get him to see it, and I'm going to find out if there's any recourse that I might have.
Councillor Kipp.
Brought forward in February 23rd, 2015, the phony meeting where Mr. Swaby didn't attend and the mayor waved papers at us and Mr. Roper was there. And then not long, a month later, this is written. And I was told by Mrs. McKenzie numerous times that only you would be talked to and Mr. Swaby till after. And I know in the bills you spent over 60 hours. This isn't even included in your 60 hours. These comments are so derogatory, so inflamed. And it's just, you talk about the team you pick, the 5-4. It's right here, pal. Here's your dysfunction right here. You've talked, Mrs. Irvine needs an apology. She was so upset with this stuff. So many people in this community deserve an apology for this. And I think now it's gone past an apology. You talk about me in here, and what you don't get about this is how much bullshit I've gone through for so many years. With like the core reviews pointed out, and some of you people can't even see it now. You don't want to. You're cheerleaders for the staffers you've become. I said that to you a long time ago. When I brought up a cross-contamination issue with the city, you waved papers in front of me, said it was interfering with Mr. Swaby's job, and you tried to get him a payout. That's all you were doing. You could have cared less that our water was stagnant in an old folks' home. This is going to my lawyer. You're going to pay a heavy price for this one. The public needs an unbelievable apology, and I would suggest you probably should step down. For what you have created in the last year, and your gang, your little gang here, the way they've talked about the women's issues and the way they've talked about stuff, holier than thou, and this is what they support, you, undeniably. Undeniably, they support you. I hope they read this and see what it does. Oh, there's your faces again. Well, you're beautiful, Wendy. I know. You're such a pretty, aesthetically pleasing person when you make faces. You turned your back when Billy was talking. The man's harmed, and you don't give a shit, woman. You are the biggest bully I've ever met under a little sheep's clothing. What is it? It's an attack on you, just like it says in here.
Counselor.
Okay, Counselor. So, March 31st, this letter. Phony meeting on the 23rd. 2 hours into the meeting, I left because of the BS And there's no minutes from Mr. Swaby or that meeting, or Mrs. Hartley, who left thereafter. $50K you tried to bill us when you talked 60 hours with this type of crap? This crap? I knew this was out there, but I didn't expect it to be this phony. You didn't even write it all. It went to 2 people. When you send derogatory comments about people, it should only go to 1 person. You've sent it to 2. And I would suggest when I look through this, this is not your writing. This is prepared by someone else. And it says in here, very, very interesting comment, getting buy-in from the majority in an attempt to garner ownership of Code of Conduct established guidelines for it. And talks about, and we'll hopefully help the mayor. That wasn't written by you unless you write in third person. Unbelievable. Work-safe process? You made a mistake of that, and you perpetrated a process on me that was so flawed and so ridiculous. You supported staff throughout this whole thing. You got Mr. Roper involved. You had 2 lawyers talking to each other that you say in here that they should get together and talk. What's that? It was $500 an hour. You had 2 lawyers talking about 2 independent investigations. Tell me, do you think this is independent? Are you a smart enough man to say it? Can you say it or you won't answer a question, will you? You don't have the guts to be truthful. The truth is going to tear you apart, man. And your pals, your gang. It's 5-4, boys and girls. 5-4. Democracy.
Thank you. Councillor Kipp. Councillor Bestwick. Councillor Fuller, I need you to take the chair, please.
Want to go for a smoke break? I woman sat here till 1 o'clock one night, and you walked out on her. She came up from Victoria. You walked out to have a smoke at 1 o'clock at night.
Okay, Councillor Kipp, can we allow Councillor Bestwick to speak, please? Thank you.
Thank you. My only comment is that the context in which this was written, and at the time when it was written, sometime late February when this started, we were only 2 months into our term. So it's interesting to read the comments that have been alleged within a 2-month window that classify all of us to an independent investigator, and the independent investigator that we were instructed, and she, Ms. McKenzie, stated emphatically to me that number 1, it was all confidential. Number 2, that there would be no discussions with any members, the mayor or staff, until such time as she had completed her discussions with members of council. And clearly that is false, clearly scripted and fabricated. Clearly, with the invoicing that took place, proves and demonstrably that there was all kinds of conversations going on while conversations were taking place with myself. I think that council was allocated 18 hours or thereabouts of interview time, and I think Mr. Swaby and Mr. McKay were allocated about 60 hours, all of which was taking place during, before, and after our meetings, which I find to be absolutely disgusting at the very best. Because we were told one thing. I had Ms. McKenzie sit in front of me bawling her eyes out, playing me. She got paid. Well, she didn't get paid because she knows, for acting, which I realize how good of an actor she is. This is why 7 members of this council, and I think we're sitting here. This is why 7 members that are sitting here. One of the reasons why 7 members sitting here signed a letter of resignation. This is why.
I didn't write that either.
And that letter of resignation somehow fell out of on somebody's windshield also somehow, and was thrown back at us, the 7 of us. So I just want to remind people, 7 of us, and there was a reason for that. And there was a reason why 7 people didn't wake up one morning to make that decision, to sign that letter. 7. That's all that I have to say. Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, where are we on the agenda? I would actually like to say one thing, and I'd like to apologize to staff for earlier. That, I'm glad you all got up and left. So, Ms. Sammer, did you have something to say?
Of that letter.
Who doesn't? Oh.
No.
Thank you. Next item, question period.
I'm glad this conversation took place. It's about time. My heart goes out to each and every one of you for what you've had to go through since you started your term in office. And now my question. In a privately held company, Mr. McKay, you would be fired on the spot.
Do you have a question, sir?
Will? Yes, I do. Don't talk down to me.
Do you have a question, sir?
I said, yes, I do.
Please, can we have your question?
Will you resign?
No, sir. Do you have any other questions? Thank you. Mr. McGrath.
Tim McGrath from Nanaimo. I'm making the assumption that from your response, where you are going to file a complaint, that's an acknowledgement that, in fact, that letter is correct. I wasn't so sure. I had my guesses. I have an idea about integrity. And so, Mr. Mayor, I'm going to ask you, how can you sit here in front of your fellow councillors and tell them you have any integrity left? Can you explain that?
I have no comment to that, sir. Do you have any other questions?
Yes. So then comes the question is, as Mr. Robert Fuller requested, when are you going to resign?
I will not, sir. Do you have another question, sir?
Is it because of your salary and you may not be able to get a job? Is that why?
Sir, I'm not going to answer that question. Do you have any
no.
reasonable questions?
That's quite reasonable, sir.
No, sir.
We know
Do you have any other questions, sir?
before you came
Do you have
to
any
the
other
last
questions,
election,
sir?
you didn't have a job. So
Do you have any other questions, sir?
Is that why you are
Do you have any other questions?
refusing to step down?
Do you have any other questions, sir?
If you quit interrupting, you might be able to hear the question that I just asked.
I've heard
you,
your
sir.
questions, sir.
No, I guess that's it. I think that everybody here in Nanaimo's got a pretty
Thank you
good
very much,
idea.
sir. Thank you.
you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Terry Wager, Nanaimo. About the integrity group, how much money is outstanding there? 50 grand or something? Is that what they still haven't been paid that they billed?
Roughly that, yes, sir.
And where would that money come from if it was paid? Like, who would pay the money?
It's my understanding that it was to come from Legislative Services budget.
From where?
Legislative Services budget.
Legislative Services.
Yes.
So is that just a long way of saying the citizens of Nanaimo?
Correct.
So we were going to have to pay 50 grand to the Integrity Group for this.
Do you have a-
Why wouldn't you pay it? It
Do you have a
sounds
que-
like
Do you have a question,
it was
sir?
your own.
Sir, it was
I'm
it
asking
was
you,
it
why
was a
wouldn't you pay
sir
it? It
sir
sounds like
it was
it
a
was your
I'm
idea.
trying to answer your question, sir. It was a contract with the city of Nanaimo. It was a contract with the city of Nanaimo.
Whose idea was it to get the Integrity Group involved?
Can I answer the question? From a budgeting perspective, $20,000 was allocated to the Legislative Services budget line, and any increase to that should have triggered a review through our CFO to increase it as it went over that amount. As it stood, Ms. McKenzie did not invoice us for an entire year, and 24 hours after she learned that it had been terminated, 12 months of billing were delivered through Mayor McKay to the CFO.
Odd. So whose idea was it to get the Integrity Group involved?
It was mine.
And why did you want to get the Integrity Group involved? I mean, council had just started. Things were going great, I thought. Everybody was all happy, nice fresh faces. Everybody's all concerned about Gord off in the hospital. Why would we need the Integrity Group, Mr. Mayor?
Because there was I had grave concerns about the relationships, the interpersonal relationships amongst council and towards our staff.
That soon? The council was less than 2 months old, weren't they?
Yes, sir. That soon.
And you thought that we should spend all that money to do what exactly?
To facilitate respectful relationships amongst council.
No motion of council ever approved that. It's put aside by staff.
Do you have any further questions, sir?
I'm wondering if you asked the council whether or not they thought they needed counseling. I guess. Was this a group decision or was it your decision on your own? Did you ask the fellow council, did you ask these people if they wanted to get the Integrity Group involved?
The council was in favor of it, sir.
So you did discuss it with them beforehand?
Yes, I did, sir.
I'm assuming that must have been in camera.
Any other questions, sir?
I guess I'm trying to. I suspect, I suppose, to be honest, that there's an ulterior motive on your part. Was there an ulterior motive on your part, Mr. Mayor? I mean, after seeing that, I can't help but think that you were scheming with this Integrity Group somehow. I mean, it's underhanded. You're telling them personal information about people, your impressions of them at least. At the same time, telling everybody that, it's all confidential information.
Do you have any other questions, sir?
Would you tell me the truth if I asked you the questions?
Do you have any other questions, sir?
No, other than this typical question of the evening. Will you resign, please?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Motion to adjourn. Councillor Bestwick, seconded by Councillor Hong. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Motion.